Welcome to the How to Heart Show, helping men reconnect to the heart and empower others as the leaders they were born to be. I'm Vincent Haasboom. The world needs the raw and authentic men right now. Join us if you're ready to make a change. Hey, what's up, Lions, and welcome to the How to Heart Show. I'm going to share something really awesome today. I'm with Wallace, and we've met like 2 years ago. And what I like about Wallace is he interviewed me for the first time. And that was such an honor because it was the first time that he asked me to do an interview. And we hit on right away and we stay connected. And I told him like, hey, I want to have you on the show now. And before we started, we had a really good conversation, but unfortunately we weren't live. So we're going to make it more powerful with this one. But what I like about Wallace is he's always excited to do these things. He's been podcasting for a long time. He has a lot of value, a lot of knowledge. And I'm really excited to have him on the show and learn more about him in depth and what he does and how he inspires men and other people as well. So, yeah, Wallace, thank you so much for being here. I'm super excited. So, thank you for being on the show.
Definitely, Vincent. I thank you for asking me to be a guest. I know, like we were just talking, it's been 2 years, I think, since we've had a conversation that's been for the masses. But I've been loosely seeing your journey and hearing more about what you're a part of is so awesome. And like I mentioned before, I admire your resilience and your never quit ability. And where you could have totally thrown in the towel, you reconnected with the mission of this podcast, How to Heart, staying true to what your heart's mission is, which is helping men, helping lions be all that they've called to be. And I really feel there's a lot of similarities in our story, and I'm just happy to be here, man.
Yeah, absolutely. The question that Wallace asked me was, I almost gave up. I almost gave up on podcasts. And then he asked me why was the reason that I kept on going. And I mentioned, if I'm not going to do it, who else is going to do it? And I knew from the bottom of my heart that I have to keep going because there are people out there that hear something from me or Wallace or from my other guests that can help them plant the seed or have some inspiration to change their lives. And I felt like I don't want to quit. I really enjoyed the podcast, sitting here talking and connecting with amazing people like Wallace. So yeah, we had a really good talk, but I'm really, really curious about your journey and what you're doing. So Wallace, can you share with us in a nutshell who you are and what you do?
Definitely, man. There's so many places I could go in this story. How far back do you want me to go?
Well, just make it the exciting part, how you started, because you also had, like me, a moment that you said, I really want to help people, or I want to help this group of people. So how did it start for you? What was the moment for you that you realized I need to help other people?
Definitely. Let's see. So back in about 2018, I would say. Well, before we get to 2018, let me back up a little bit further. So 2008, forever ago, I was in high school and I fell in love with the art of hip hop, rapping, making songs. I was just this young high school age kid. And what was I like? Early teens, I would say. I'm trying to make sure because I know that we're across the world, so I don't know if high school translates to everybody. So I want to make sure I kind of set the stage for anyone who may be watching. But yeah, and I just fell in love with the culture and the art of hip hop. So I was like, I'm gonna be the next fill in the blank world star. Over here in the States, we have Lil Wayne, we have Drake, a lot of the great, you might know who those guys are listening or watching. And I put my heart and soul on that. And from an early age, that was me. I was the high performer, high achiever. I played sports. I played baseball and American football and just poured myself into what I did. And quickly that became my identity. My identity became in my performance, and my ability to get love was on a purely earned performance base. And I say that now to preface where we go in my story a little bit later. But fast forward, I'm making rap music. I spanned a 10-year career of rap. I written, recorded, released hundreds, 200s, probably closer to 300 songs if we got really down to the ones that may or may not have actually made the cut out there. I was putting in the work. So from an early age, I understood that to be great, you have to put in the reps. And it got to a point where, fast forward, it's 2018, and I had put out probably my best song to that point. Made it with a few different guys that I knew in the area, put it out. It was getting some amazing traction. And along the way, faith in my faith and my religion, my belief in Jesus, which we can go wherever we need to go for that to be respectable for everyone. But that became a big portion of my life. And I truly believe that there is a God and he has created us with a purpose, on purpose, for a purpose. And I, at the time, up until 2018, I felt like my purpose was I'm going to be the next best rapper that I can be. So if there's anything to pull from my story so far, it's that idea of putting your whole self into something, because I truly believe that you can't just halfway do something and expect full term results, right? So you've got to put your whole self into what you're doing. And it get to a point 2018 where I was just in my quiet time, my meditation time with God. And I really felt like he said, do you trust me enough to lay down the very thing you've wrapped your whole identity in? And to be honest, I kind of had a bit of an altercation there in the moment talking to God. I'm like, what do you mean? I am a rapper. This is what I've spent the last 10 years devoted to. And you want me to lay that down for what? What's going to be better than this? I want to go get the Grammy. I want to go be on the world tour. Like you name it, I want to go do that. I saw my name in lights kind of thing. And even in that seeing my name in lights, I still wanted to use the music as a way to inspire and impact others. So even back then, the goal was to inspire and impact others. And in that moment, I had a choice. I could lay down the very thing that I had all my identity in and trust God and step out into the unknown, or I could just keep doing it my own way. And at first there was some, I'm going to keep doing it my own way. but then of course, I obeyed. I obeyed what I felt like God was telling me to do. And from about 2018 to about middle towards the end of 2020 was almost like this redefining who I was opposed to what I do. And what was beautiful is it all kind of was a combination of that. And then we get into 2020 and there's the great panini where the world shuts down and we no longer are doing. And I had all these tasks and all these things that I was doing, but finally I was forced into my thoughts and myself. And at the end of everything I do, who am I? And that began a journey that I first had to learn myself in order to help those that I feel like I'm impacting today. And I would love to ask the people at home to sit with that. Who are you behind what you do? Because it's so easy to get wrapped up in what you do. And over here in the States, when you make small talk with the stranger, one of the first things you ask them is, what do you do for work? I don't know if that conversation may translate in other areas of the country, but it's such a focus on our identity is based on what we do. And if there's anything that I've learned, and especially as men and as leaders, like we want to provide, we want to lead, we want to do. And I submit a bit of a paradox of sorts, a question of, if you could not do anything, who would you be? And that began the journey that I thought, because I feel like in order to truly succeed and make an impact and help others, we must first see what our intentions are behind it and who we are behind it. And that's where the journey kind of began. And early part of 2020, 2021, I stepped out into this idea of coaching people. And of course, 2018 is when I started podcasting. So through all of this, there was this arc of, I wanted to encourage and motivate people through the spoken word, because words have power. They carry weight. If you can change what you're seeing, change what you're saying, you'll change your whole future. You'll change the world around you. And realizing that there's such power in our words is what captivated me and got me on this journey of helping others. And I don't want to ramble too much on my own. I definitely want to hear some of the questions that you have, but that's kind of a starting place that we can go from.
it's quite an interesting journey that you started from rap and then to helping other men. But the question that really came to me, and I've been always stuck to this question, Red Wallace, is that a stage name? Is that your real name?
I
I've
love
been
it. So
always curious about that.
yeah, definitely. So Red Wallace, red is color of my hair, and it's
Yeah.
funny. I love that you asked that. My actual name is Dustin Wallace,
Oh
Dustin.
yeah,
Dustin.
I
That's
remember
my
now.
real name behind the. It's not necessarily a stage name. It's just a nickname. And since I was younger, people just call me Red because of the color of my hair. And honestly, that kind of was birthed out of you may not realize it now as I'm so over the top charismatic in my conversation with you, but a lot of my life when I wasn't performing, when I wasn't making raps or when I wasn't speaking on camera, I was I had a lot of social anxiety. I was kind of the weird quiet kid. And to the point where when I would introduce myself saying Dustin, I would like almost shake and almost be timid and people would be like, "Is your name Justin?" Like they would mispronounce it, and to avoid conflict and to avoid more conversation, I was like, "My name's Red, like the color." And it just was so easy. It was easy, and I could say it, and they would remember it. Not realizing now it's more of like, wow, they're remembering it, and makes it easier for someone to remember. But it really it's funny thinking of it now, as it really was birthed out of a place of I was just really socially awkward. And I was like, I least I can say possible. But it's funny to see that now as like a because yeah, it's not necessarily an armor because I love my real name, Dustin. It actually stands for valiant fighter. And it's funny because I really feel like there is some power in what we are named. And I think that it's interesting to look into your names. But yeah, I love that question and I appreciate you asking it.
Yeah, it's been always stuck with me that question. I forgot, but I knew your name was Dustin. But
For
it's been
sure.
such a long while, and I really had to ask, so I
No,
wasn't
no, you're
sure. But
totally fine. There's 2 people that call me Dustin, my mom and my wife, and usually they say it when I'm in trouble. So that's kind
yeah,
of the joke that I like to say. But yeah, Red's just been not necessarily a new identity, but it's just I love the idea, and I feel like it suits me in the fact that I'm very passionate about encouraging and helping people, and there's not another word from a psychological standpoint that is more passionate than the color red,
yeah, it gives some fire also to
for
the. I
sure.
like the people of the ginger color. I think they have something special. So it's really cool to yeah, to see the ginger people to choose how they communicate and talk. I think they have something like feisty. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm
For
wrong,
sure.
but I think they have something really cool.
Definitely.
But Dustin, what really came to me was the anxiety, the social awkwardness, and
Mhm.
feeling like not fitting in. And I felt the same way. I always had that feeling that I was awkward and I didn't fit in. And I was really extrovert when I was younger. And once I got heartbroken and I if I wanted to talk, I would just put into the ground. I stopped talking. I stopped sharing. So I'm curious, how was it for you to become introvert and change to extroverted? For me, it's really strange to see you from being introvert now to being extrovert.
I still like to say that I'm like an introverted extrovert. And I think that it's the both and for me. And also it's an idea of labels too. And if I could dive into that for a minute, is a lot of
Yeah,
times I
sure.
feel like we're we're presented a label, whether it was intentional for us to present it to ourselves or someone else had presented to us, and we adopt that as an identity. And I like to look at it as I feel like our identities are fluid, not in the sense of not in the sense of the way it can get very weird quickly, but in the sense of if if at some point you felt like you were one way, an example, introverted, I believe that over time you can adopt and grow in your identity to a way that maybe you are now extroverted. But I say that I'm both and because there's plenty of times when the situation isn't necessarily what I'm used to or what I'm hoping for, that I can very easily be very closed off and quiet. It's funny, we had a friend of ours actually come over earlier. An older lady in our community was helping my wife learn this new recipe. So they were in the kitchen cooking, and she was hanging out and she was talking about our kids, and she was saying how our kids are very vocal, very loud and vocal. And she was like, "Wow, where did they get that from? Because Red, you're not very loud and vocal." And I'm like, I'm not. Have you been around me? But then I'm thinking back to our encounters, and I can be when I'm meeting someone for the first time, be more so reserved because and the more that I've gotten older, I've realized that it can be a super strength. Because when I was younger, I almost saw it for what it was, which was this anxiety, this worry of being seen. But then there became a shift. The more I read books, the more I understood like the way that our minds work and the way that human interaction works, that there's an importance of before someone cares before someone cares about what you know, they want to know how much you care. And that was a quote that's really been sticking with me. And that's where I feel like when I revert back into more of a listener and less of a talker. As you notice, even when we are having this conversation before we clicked, I went into question mode because I'm
Yeah.
curious, and I feel like that again. That's the strength side of being more socially awkward. Is you when you stop looking at yourself inwardly and you start looking outwardly, you're like, if I get really curious about this person, I wonder what I could find out about them. So then and when the spotlight turns off of us, then we're not as scared being introverts because the focus isn't on us. And there's been a lot of different things in there, but to go back to your question, it's I really feel like it's an interesting perspective to take. Is a lot of times we will adopt the identities and the labels that people give us. Can I share a quick story?
Yeah, sure.
Awesome. So there's this story, and bear with me if you've heard it before, but there was this guy. We'll call him Benji for the sake of keeping names out of it. But Benji was probably in his 50s or 60s. So later on in his midlife, and he was at this pace where he came up to me and he was like, I admire how creative you are, how you're just, you put things together, the way that you articulate things is super creative. And I was like, wow, I really appreciate that. And then what he said after that really punched me in the gut. He said that I don't think I could ever be that creative. And that hurt me to hear because I really believe that we were created by a creative creator. And if we are made in his image, then us too are innately creative. And unfortunately, I feel like, again, it goes back to the labels. So, of course, me being curious, I was like, what do you mean, Benji? What do you mean that you are not creative? And then as we kind of got to talking, come to find out when he was probably in earlier on school, when he was young, early development, little guy going to school for the first time, they had a project in school, and the project was to draw a horse. So like you know what a horse is, the animal that's a horse. You draw the horse, and they were in little group tables. So there was like 4 or 5 of them in a group, and they're all just taking their own time drawing this horse. And the girl sitting next to him, we'll call her Susie for the sake of the story, looks over and she says, what is that? That is nothing. That looks nothing like a horse. And Benji's like, what do you mean? It's my interpretation of a horse. It probably looked like a little stick figure. Ridiculous, but he's just doing his best as a child. And she was like, you're not creative. That looks awful. That's nothing like what we're supposed to be doing. And that little small seed of you're not creative, that looks nothing like what you were supposed to be doing, set with Benji all of his life. And I really feel like if we're not careful and we don't revisit the stories that have been told over us and the stories that we tell ourselves, we can quickly start living who we weren't created and called to live. And that's what I really feel like when it comes to this idea of whether it's creativity or whether it's strength or whether it's being vulnerable, and deciding, am I going to be socially awkward or socially accepted? It all comes down to the stories that we believe and then the stories that we tell ourselves. And that interaction and thought has always stuck with me. And I feel like it's a really important place to sit.
Thank you so much for sharing the story, but I totally agree. And I had the same similar mindset. I was always had this image or this identity that I wasn't good enough, or like we talked about. I was really introverted, and especially when I'm with strange people. For me, I need to take time to feel good and feel comfortable, so I can share what I feel, or I can really communicate with somebody. But I had this identity that I'm an introvert, so I'm not good with people, or I'm not good with women, or I had this identity that I've been so bullied that I wasn't worthy. And it was so difficult for me to get out of that, to change that narrative of I'm good enough. I'm good as who I am. And I also had a conversation with a colleague, and he told me people have to take you as who you are. And he told me that a couple of times, but it didn't click.
Hmm.
It was like, no, I don't feel like that. I don't feel that I need to be myself. I need to be somebody else. And I was carrying this mask for years and years and years, pretending that I'm not. And then once he told me, I said to myself, I really have to start being myself. It doesn't matter how people perceive me, how they think about me. I need to be myself. And once I did that, just be myself, I can be like a dorky guy. I can be sometimes a bit like rude. I can sometimes be really like from the heart, really intuitive. I be how I feel. And once I start doing that, I felt a lot better. I felt calmer, and I didn't have to wear that mask anymore. Was it also the same for you?
Oh yeah, it definitely is that. I love the way that you were putting that, because it's so interesting that we almost have to hear things multiple times before they stick sometimes. And oh, yeah, what you said was huge. So much of the early part of my life, and even if I'm not careful to stand on top of it, it's very easy to step into wearing those masks and feeling like an imposter. But I feel like this, because I know imposter syndrome is such a buzzword here in the personal development space that you almost get tired of hearing it. But I feel like one of the main reasons that people fall into that is because they are told this thought, fake it till you make it. And that is great and all until it's not. That's great and all until you get to a space of you've got to discover who you are. Because the world doesn't need a copy of Alex Hermosi. They don't need a copy of fill in the blank person that you follow. They need you. And I love that we mentioned this before we even dove in, because it's that idea of people need to hear your story. People need to hear your voice. And that's where when people get worried about AI, they get worried that AI is going to take over things. AI can never fully embody you. Like they can try, they can make the deep fakes and whatnot, but if you get close enough and you listen, there, what's being put into that system came from somewhere, and it came from that person. Like if they're making a Joe Rogan, hopefully the analogy flows. Do you know who Joe Rogan is? I assume you do, but
Yeah.
they've made the fake Joe Rogans. He was once Joe Rogan himself. And I say all that to say is like you've got to lean into who you were created to be. And that's been a big thing that I think that that's a lifelong journey, because I feel like we never get to a point of arriving or I've made it. And if we're not careful, we'll believe what we're fed by social media, which is like, oh, you'll get it when you get the next car. Oh, you'll get it when you've made this amount of money. Oh, you'll get it when you get that nice car or that nice house. And you'll get those things and they might make you feel happy for a day or so, but then you'll be, what's next? And I really feel like the biggest misconception we're given is we're always trying to chase after something that's not us. And one of the hardest things that we have to master as humans is contentment, not complacency. They're cousins, but they're not the same. Complacency leaves you stuck in lesser, but contentment says, I am grateful for this moment right now. I'm grateful for where I am. I'm grateful for how far I've been, and I'm optimistic for where I'm going next. And I feel like if we don't live in that tension, then we'll always be unsatisfied.
Yeah, I feel the same. It's really the what do you have to offer? And a lot of people have a really powerful story, but they're so afraid to share it. They're
Yeah,
so afraid of people that they being judged or
come
people
on.
don't want to listen to their story. And I've been there as well with my
Yeah,
podcast. When what we discussed, I also wanted to stop because I felt nobody was listening. Why do I keep doing this if nobody cares, if nobody listens? But from my core, from my heart, I knew I had to keep going because I knew my message it will land with somebody. It will, or I will plant a seed. So I really love what you mentioned here, that you have a story, you have a powerful story to share, and it takes a lot of courage to start sharing that story. And if I can share a bit of my journey,
yeah,
is once I started to share my journey on social media or with other people, I wasn't being judged.
yeah.
Nobody
Come on,
said, "Oh, look at this guy. He's complaining about pornography, so he's a loser." Nobody said that to me.
come on.
They encourage me like, wow, thank you so much for sharing, and I hope you can reach other men to also show up and also share more about what's going on in life, especially with men, because we're men, we're so closed off, we don't want to share because it's weakness, or we don't want to be a pussy or stuff like that, so we just be quiet so we don't share emotions.
Come
But
on.
I switched that, I turned that around.
Yeah,
I shared my story, I shared what's going on, sometimes too much, but I really shared
I love it.
I already shared what I felt, and nobody judged me. So yeah, it was therapy really to share my journey, share what's going on. And some people told me like, "Oh, thank you so much for sharing, and thank you so much for what you're doing and all of that." So it's you have to try and see it for yourself. But it's
Definitely.
really life changing, right, Dustin? If you really share from your heart.
Come on. I feel like vulnerability is a gift. It's this idea of you don't have to share what's going on in your mind, in your world, to everyone. And with the gift, you have to remember some people aren't going to receive it. But at the end of the day, it's better to give than receive sometimes. And your ability to give, and again, and I say that in a preference of, obviously you're not going to go to a stranger on the street and tell them your deep, deep, dark secrets because y'all haven't built that connection. And if there's any practical thing when it comes to sharing, is get into a community. Like I'm sure Vincent's building some form of a community, even if it's just following him and befriending him. That getting around people that are willing to be open and looking to grow. And so I lead a men's group every Monday. I co-lead a men's group every Monday, and it's in person. It's with some of the guys, a part of my community. And what I find so beautiful is we have this question. We call it the question. And the guys that have been there know what's coming, and those that are new have no idea. But we call it the question. And the question is, and again, this is something you're not going to do on a day one when you've just met someone. But this is after you've built some form of rapport relationship with somebody, someone that you can trust. And the question is, what do you want us to not know about you? And there's something beautiful that happens every time is someone will share something, And you mentioned pornography. I too have had a past overcoming pornography, and some of the men in the group also have had a past of battling pornography or whatever it may be, addictions, various things like that. And it's such a beautiful moment when a bunch of men, a bunch of leaders, a bunch of people that are seen as providers or have to be overly strong or macho have the opportunity to sit down and no longer carry what they're not supposed to carry. Because I truly believe that there's sometimes that the body keeps score, right? We've heard it said that way. And if we're suppressing these deep, deep feelings and traumas that we've experienced and not letting them come out, they'll physically show up as stress and disease and ailments in our bodies. And it's beautiful because someone will say something and they're not met with judgment. And that's a preface before we say this. We're like, you cannot judge the people in this circle. What stays in the circle, what's said in the circle stays in the circle, kind of thing. So you build the safety of having that place to share. So that's another important piece. But right away, someone will share something. And instead of being met with judgment or, oh, I'm never going to talk to this person again. Wow, he's so weak. All those negative words that you just described, they're met with grace, and they're met with a connection of humanity that you probably have never experienced before if all you've ever had in your life is surface level conversations. So you may have the guy that says, I've battled with this addiction, porn, drugs, alcohol, whatever it may be. And someone down the line in the circle either is currently battling too or overcame it. So now you've got to, now that it's in the light, and I posted a podcast today about that. It's that idea of when you expose what's only growing in the dark, it can no longer grow in your life. So if you've got this deep dark secret or addiction or whatever it may be, it's growing in isolation. But the moment that it's brought into light and brought around community, it begins to suffocate and die. And if there's any way to true freedom and healing, it's getting in a circle that's not going to judge you for what you've gone through or currently going through, but who's going to walk with you through it.
Yeah, I totally agree, and thank you so much for sharing that.
For sure.
And what I wanted to add is, if you hang out with the wrong friends, for example, you hang with five idiots, you become the six.
Yeah, come on.
But yeah, it's
That's
it's
so
true.
true.
If you being with people that don't care, that don't want to do with their lives, and you
Come on.
spend a lot of time with them, you will follow their behavior, you follow their
Yep.
example, and you become one of them. But if you start with hanging out with positive people that wants to enjoy life, or people that are really wealthy and they know how to make money or their business, if you start to hang out with them, you become the next millionaire, if I can say it like that.
Come on.
Not it
Yeah.
might not happen, but it can happen because you're changing your mindset, you're changing your habits, because you're hanging out with the people that can lift you up. They can bring you up to the place that you want to be. But it's also a decision, because you can choose to hang out with idiots, or you can
Come on.
choose to hang out with millionaires. So it's always a choice. And for me, quitting pornography was a choice. I could
Come
I
on.
could choose to stay there and keep myself safe and still be in that space. But I've learned it's really a coping mechanism. It's really for
Come on.
me
So good.
outside of myself, and try to fill in the void, the pain that I was filling it up with pornography, but it was just nothing. And I totally agree what you said. It's, whereas men, we are so, we lost the connection with other men, the brotherhood, right? We really lost that
Yep.
connection with other men.
So true. Yeah, and it's such an interesting thing. Even as you say that, uh, I love the way that you said, and it's like the cliche, show me your friends, I'll show you your future, or you're the culmination of the 7 people you hang out with. And I grew up in a space, and I love that you mentioned this idea of personal development and how earlier in our conversation, how that can be toxic if it's not used with action. And I grew up in a space where my circle at first was the people that I listened to. It was the podcast, the books, and that is great and all, but you can't stay there, because if you get into this echo chamber of just hearing other people's voices and not having that connection, that's where it's important, because it's show me your friends, I'll show you your future. Don't show me who you're listening to, because yes, you may call them friends, or you may look up to them, but they're not in a direct relation with you. And it's like that idea of, I heard it said, oh, Michael Jordan. Do you know the basketball player Michael Jordan? I feel like everyone does. So if Michael Jordan had a fan and a very close friend, and they were talking to each other, the fan is like, oh, I know Michael Jordan. He's shot this many shots. He's won this many games. And they knew all these stats. They knew about him. But then the friend who's been with them highs and lows, before he was great, after he was great, knows him. And I feel like that's what we have to find and cultivate in our lives, is not just being fans of those that we look up to, but being friends and being connected to people that are going to point out and coach us and encourage us through things. Because like I mentioned, I have this group of men that I'm connected to. We have a group chat. And even before the podcast, I'm like, hey guys, pray for me. I'm about to hop on this podcast. I just want to make sure that I'm impacting people the most I can. And they were just encouraging me there. And then vice versa, they might share something they're going through. And again, it's in real time. You're having a back and forth. And that's where we go back to the AI thought. Yes, AI can talk to you and you can have a therapist that's AI, but they don't know the nuances, the wisdom that comes from a human being also walking through this life that we call. Because again, it goes back to a lot of personal, and if I can get on a soapbox with you about personal development, a lot of personal development gets stuck in the learner. It gets stuck in the logic, and wisdom only comes when it's knowledge applied. Wisdom is knowledge applied. So you could have all this knowledge and read all the books and do all the podcasts and never apply that knowledge. Then what do you have to show for it? You know a lot, but what's the impact that you've made? And again, I'm not talking to you directly, Vince. I'm talking to myself sometimes, and those that are at home. I'm not trying to lay the hammer down and hurt anybody, but I say that in loving, in a loving way, is that sometimes the truth is we got to make a step and make that connection with the people that are going to call us higher. I know
Yeah, absolutely.
I went a lot of different routes there. I was
Yeah,
like,
yeah. That's good, because you said some things that I want to discuss with you as well. But what really came to me is the action taking, because
yeah,
I did the same. I was in my not really in my youth, but once I started the self development journey, I was consuming so much books. I went to a lot of courses, coaching, but I didn't do anything with it. I was
come
just
on,
consuming, because I believed if I consume so much information, I
come on.
will build this wall around myself. I will build this shield so nobody will hurt me. I would know exactly what I will say when people hurt me. I know exactly what I will do when people say this or that. And I was trying to keep myself safe, be hiding behind my books or
Come
hiding
on.
behind coaches or courses. But later on, I realized I have to take action. I have all this knowledge. It's not mine, but of what I've learned. And what you mentioned is correct. Your true learning come from living life, taking action, and getting experience. But what I realized in the moment, I have to take action. I can read all these books, but I realize in life it will go different, or I have other experiences. So that was for me really the key moment, taking action. It's also with podcasting. I can say I'm a podcaster, but
Come
if I
on.
don't record, there's no podcast. So taking action is so important. And Dustin, what I really want to come back to that's really coming up is really the vulnerability, right? With
Mhm.
men. And what is for you, what means vulnerability for you, and how important is it for men to start being vulnerable again?
Hmm. It's it's essential. It's essential for us to grow in so many different areas. And I love that question. What is vulnerability to me? I mentioned it a little earlier. I feel like first, vulnerability is a gift. And I would say second, that vulnerability is essential, because you're not going to truly know someone and they're not going to truly know you until you're willing to go to that space. Like, there's a book out there, it's called Getting Naked. And it sounds weird and silly, but it's essentially, it's not about being a nudist. It's about being, it's about embracing vulnerability. And specifically, this one was in the business and in the workspace, but it applies to all areas of life. Because I look at it being a husband, and I have my wife, and if I'm never telling her how I truly feel, again, it's not her weight to carry sometimes, but also she needs to know that what I'm going through, to know where I'm at. Because how fair is it to bottle up your true feelings and emotions about something, and then blow up on your loved ones? Because that's usually what will happen, especially us as guys, is if we're just bottling up, oh, I'm feeling depressed, oh, I'm not good enough, just tuck it deep down inside, don't let anyone see it, because that's what us men, we're manning up. We're being tough. Real men don't cry, right? We're told all of these lies, and then all of a sudden we're yelling at our spouse, or we're blowing up on our kids. And what is that getting us? That's getting us nothing. We're not being the leaders that we've been called to be to those that matter the most in our lives. But what if we paused and we were like, okay, right now in this moment, I don't feel enough. I don't feel qualified. And if you've surrounded yourself with the right people, like if you've got the right spouse, and you're raising up your kids the way you want to raise them up, or friends that are around you, then they're going to, they love you. They don't love the thing that you're wrestling with. And I think so much we get caught up in thinking someone's gonna walk away from us because what we're wrestling. But really, they love you. And if they love you, they're going to stick with you through it all. Like, I mean, when we make marriage vows, it's through, till death do us part, through sickness and health. I would really hope that if I got sick, my wife would stick with me, and she has. And I can tell stories for days that we'll save for another episode. But I'll say all that to say is, like, yeah, vulnerability it's essential, it's necessary. And as leaders, I think the way that we can cultivate this is leaders go first. And to share a really quick story that hopefully illustrates that, is there are some indigenous tribes out in, I'm not sure where they're at, but like tribes that live off the land. Like, they live in the wilderness, they hunt, they scavenge berries. That is how they live. And they have, rankings. There's like the leader of the tribe, the king of the tribe, and then you've got all the people further down, people that are hunters, people are gatherers. And some tribes, they will send out, if they find some new berries that they've never seen, which berries can be poisonous. You go eat a berry, it's poisonous, you die. Where some kings, some tyrant kings, would send out someone that wouldn't matter to go check to see if those berries are good. But true leadership, I believe, is going first. Because, and again, leaders eat last, and I agree, that's a whole other book in itself. But in this concept, if you can track with me, I believe that leaders go first. Meaning, things are caught more than they're taught. Meaning, if you want to cultivate vulnerability, you have to first be vulnerable. Like, if you want a deeper connection with your circle of friends, or your spouse, or your kids, it comes from those moments where you can be honest. Like, I loved it. I heard of another story of, there was this leader of this company, and they took their company on a big trip because they were successful that year. And earlier in that year, they had put a plan to make a better compensation for the employees. And they got to this big celebration at the end of the year, and the leader got up and he said, I'm sorry, guys, the plan that we put in place failed, and that's on me. And I'm taking full responsibility, and we're going to do everything we can to make it work the right way. Now, if he was not a vulnerable leader, he could have like totally pretended like that didn't happen, or he could have pushed it off to someone else that was lower on the totem pole, so to speak. But he took full ownership for what happened. And I feel like vulnerability is taking full ownership of our life, because it's such it's so necessary. Like I can't say it enough. It's like it's so necessary because when we don't own the emotions or the things that we felt, then we can't fully process them. And if we're not fully processed and fully healed, we're not going to be at our full potential for those that we're called to impact.
That's really powerful, Dustin. What really came to me was I had it also with my ex girlfriend. I was not being vulnerable because I wasn't telling her how I felt, or the relationship was really not working well. And I saw something was not working, but I just let it happen. I told myself, well, if I give enough love, she will change. She will change her behavior and she's gonna love me back. But it never happened, and I never told her like, hey, we need to change this. If not, this is not gonna work. I feel awful that I'm being judged of my behavior. I don't know if I do things right or wrong, even though our relationship was really really bad. It was really toxic, but I didn't take action. I didn't tell her
Yeah,
how I felt.
come on.
And I think for a lot of men, it's really difficult to share, right? To really share
Mhm.
what's on their heart, and especially when they're in a relationship and with somebody that feels not good, they just stay silent. They just too afraid to say what they feel. What do you think men are now in this day and age? That men are being pushed so much in the feminine side and not in the masculine side and not taking any action. What do you think is the reason that men are not becoming leaders anymore and just obedient men?
Mm. I love this question. And if I can take it from a more spiritual thought, because I believe that we're first, let me preface by saying, I believe that we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And I believe that there's a lot of power at play that we don't see. And not to sound too woo woo, hopefully everyone's still tracking. But I say all that to say is I feel like there's a direct attack on men because if we look at the natural order of creation, is men are the head of the household and they lead their family in the way that they should go. And when that gets attacked, then therefore it's like it's either a power struggle between a man and a woman trying to figure out who's going to lead, or it's a complete passivity where then people are stepping into roles that they're not called to step into. And all of a sudden they're doing things that they weren't created to do and then wonder why there's this cognitive disconnection. Because when you were created to do one thing and you're now doing the other thing, then there's going to be a incongruency. And I say all that to say is if the enemy that we have out there can attack the infrastructure of masculinity, then he's won because he's crushed the whole understanding of the order of how things should work. And hopefully that explains it in a way that's understandable. But yeah, I really feel like when we start acting like what we weren't created to act like and then expect the opposite result, it's insanity, right? We're doing the wrong thing expecting this result. But yeah, I think that it's much more spiritual than we may think. And I feel like there's like a both and with it. Like another way that I've seen it described is tough, tough and tender. And I might have shared this story with you back in the day. Maybe I haven't. If I haven't, great. If I have, sorry, bear with me. And I'll cut it short because I know our time is running thin. But essentially, there was a guy that was a Navy SEAL. Like he's like next level GI Joe. Like he takes out the bad guys. He's in a position where he can't tell civilians what he does because it's top secret. And he will go out and he will be full on Terminator type, The Rock in the best action movie you can name it. He's doing that, and then when he gets home, he switches out of being Mr. Macho tough guy, and he goes and has a tea party with his daughter. Because the thing is, we are called to not just be lions, but we're called to be lamb. We're called to be the lion that's tough for those that we're called to love, and we're called to be the lamb, to be tender with those that we're called to love and lead. And it's a both and. And if we can embrace the both and, then we find that there's this tension that we hold. Because if we're not careful, we'll be too much lion. And then all of a sudden we're biting off the heads of the people that we're called to take care of. And if we're not careful, which is happening a lot in society, we're too much lamb. So then we're too feminine and we're too demasculated, that we're paralyzed into nothingness because we got to be passive. We can't offend anybody. So it's like this really unique tension that I feel like we hold as men. And when we find that sweet spot, man, we're going to fly.
It's finding the balance. It's really finding the balance between the masculine and the feminine, because we have the masculine and the feminine side. And in my journey, I was stuck in the feminine side. And I also went with a dating coach, and I talked to him, and he said, you're so much in your feminine side. You start to, he said it in a rough way, you start to feel your balls again. You need to start feeling your masculinity. And it was really difficult for me to become a man, because I was really, I hope if I don't offend you, or if I was talking to a lady and I wanted to get sexual with her or really show my interest, I would and I offended her, I would tell her, oh, sorry, did I offend you? Did something wrong? But that's not masculine. It's really in your feminine. And women don't want that, because she knows if she's going to date you, she knows she's going to be in her masculine. She has to take the lead. So she will reject you or say sorry, I have a boyfriend, and walk away. Because deep inside, she knows she's not the right fit. Even though she thinks you're a nice guy, you look great. But in the end, she knows deep inside, no, this is not the right guy for me, because he cannot protect, he cannot provide when we have children. He cannot provide this danger. If there's a nice guy and she has a date with him, or the boyfriend and girlfriend, and she's being harassed by another guy, and her boyfriend cannot protect him.
Mm-hmm. Come on.
So she knows intuition, right away, boom, this is a masculine guy or not. So even though if guys are being rejected by women, it's not your fault. It's not because of you're different, or your looks, or your height, or how much money you have. It's really if you're masculine or not. And you really need to be in balance with your masculine and feminine. So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Dustin.
Definitely.
So do you want to share something before we're gonna go into a commercial?
No, we're good. This is a good spot for the commercial. Let's roll that.
So great. So after the commercial, I want to have a deeper going with Dustin and his creativity and his men's group. So it's really cool to learn more, because now we've seen a side of Dustin in his past and what he did into becoming the man that he is today. But I really want to go a little bit more into creativity, because that's what we were really lacking. And I really feel that I want to go more there in depth with you there. So guys, I'm gonna run a commercial for 2 minutes, and it's about gold and silver. So don't go back, and we're right back.
Increasing expenses have caused us all a lot of pressure these days, and it's affecting even the wealthiest of people. Most have lost their sense of security, stability, and even hope for a strong financial future. The game plan of everyone in your cell phone has likely been disrupted or even hardcore stopped, and most are looking for a creative solution to regain financial momentum. Oftentimes, life's best solutions are the simplest. But first, a question. What is something most people think they should own but don't? Crypto, fine art, real estate? Nope. We are talking about real money. The kind kings and queens fought for and large institutions today buy in mass. We're talking about gold and silver, assets that provide confidence in tough financial situations. So the question is, do you own any? If you don't, you're not alone. Most people aren't maximizing the power of precious metals because it's just been too complicated. And even though they see advertisements about gold and silver daily, they don't really know who to trust. That is, until now. The bottom line is that buying gold and silver doesn't have to be complicated or scary. There's a simple, better way to accumulate assets and create financial peace, headache-free. And this very minute, A new community of average people are seeing above average results to the tune of tens of millions in assets over the last few years. This system is tested, it's simple, and it's not an experiment. To date, it's helped more than 80,000 people bring hope back into their lives. It's invitation only. And right now, this new community has accepted a challenge to give away as much free gold this year as possible. Curious? Learn how to get your free gold today. Check out the next step to get the details.
Welcome back. Welcome back. So I'm here with Red Wallace, but the real name Dustin Wallace. And yeah, I've been loving the conversation. I really felt we had a really good connection when I started talking to you for the first time and how you interviewed me. I really like your style. Really that you want to talk from the heart, the vulnerability. You really want to help the man as best as you can. And we're gonna go there a little bit later. But I want to go more into your creativity, Dustin. So is it still there? The creativity, is it still there? Do you still rap? Do you still do those things?
I'll write a rap here and there. I feel like creativity is so universal, and I feel like if we're not careful, we're very quick to put it into a box, because a lot of people will see creativity as, oh, you've made the piece of music or you've made the piece of art. But I feel like creativity is literally in our DNA, and it's in everything that we do. Even this podcast that you created is creative. Being a content creator, you're being creative. Being a parent, you're being creative because you're finding what way is going to best speak to your child. Being a husband, or a spouse, or in a relationship, it's creative because you're finding unique ways to express your love and belief into someone. So yeah, I think that's a quick way to say that is, yeah, I feel like if we're not creating, we're not living to our fullest. And I think a lot of men have shut off their creativity because sometimes it's like they're told it isn't practical. It's almost like they're told that you almost have to grow up, and there's a level of childlikeness that comes with creativity that you have to be open to. But yeah, I really feel like creativity is how we can dream and have vision for our life. Because yeah, like I mentioned, like you don't have to paint to be creative. You could be building those systems. You could be casting vision. And that's what I hope to do with some of the work that I do now. Is I feel like the red print coaching framework that I put together is creative in itself, because there's 5 R's in it, a 6th R if you think of the ending. But even in that, coming up with that title, coming up with the way it makes it more memorable. Even when I'm making these podcasts, I feel like there's a creativity in how we teach. If you're a teacher out there, how can you teach something in a way that's going to stick? What's the illustration? What's the story there? So yeah, I feel like the creativity will never die. It'll only continue to be cultivated.
Yeah, I agree. The thing is, only with AI, we give too much to AI to build the creativity that we're losing slowly. And I like what you said about the childish, the creativity, the childlike, playful way. My dating coach said the same. You need to start the playfulness. You need to
Mhm.
bring back that inner child, that playfulness that you want to bring out. But like you said, we're grown up, so we're not this child anymore. So we're now pushing it all on the side, and it's not there, but it's always there. I had a couple of days. I had an interview with somebody else, and we talked about the same thing. It's really the inner child is still there,
Mhm.
but we stop listening to it. We
Yeah.
stop hearing it, and it's really sad because there are people, they have something that's really important to them. For example, they want to play with these model trains, but they
Uh-huh.
stop because they think it's not manly, or the partner say it's stupid. Why are you still playing with trains when you feel still you did it as a child, but now because other people tell you to stop, you stop. And also with the name, it's the same. The How to Heart Show, it's
Mhm.
creativity. It's not like I go on ChatGPT and say create a name. It just really, I was brainstorming with somebody and she misheard me and she said, "What? How to heart?" when we're talking about something else. She thought I was telling her something, but she misunderstood and said something else. And that was how the name was born. So those things can happen if you're just being creative. It just, I also with my post, I share, and it's really my creative of being sharing my post. I can write really fast posts because I'm in flow. The words come to me when I'm writing. So it's creativity. So I really agree with you, Dustin, that we really don't lose the creativity. Also with AI, it's faster. They can do it sometimes better, but really don't lose the creativity, right? It's just
Yeah, I think that
don't lose
that's
it.
huge. And also, I think that AI can be a tool if you know how to use it. Again, it goes back to money's a tool, a great tool, but a bad master. Just like anything, AI is a great tool and a bad master. Don't go letting AI do your thinking and creativity. Sure, if you give it a great prompt, it's going to give you a great response because it's the you that you put in your essence into it. And I think that that's huge. And also, it's like you said, you get into a flow state because creativity is a muscle. Just like you go to the gym and work out your muscles, if you want them to grow, you got to grow and work. You got to work your creativity. And I also put a disclaimer on that too, because in the world we live in, there's a few things that can rob us of the creativity. And one being, it's almost like we feel like we have to monetize everything. And I really encourage you, yes, there is ways that you can turn your creativity into a very lucrative, very successful business, and you should. And at the caveat of understanding, sometimes when you turn the thing that you love as creativity into work, then all of a sudden it becomes work. And then you're wondering, why do I have creative block? So I encourage you to have that one piece of creativity that's just for you. And it could be something silly that's unrelated to anything. Like sometimes I'll paint and it's absolute trash. But there was a season when I wasn't growing up and going through school, I took art classes, not because I was going to be the next Michelangelo or Picasso, but because it was a way to flex a creative muscle in a different way. And it's really interesting because I feel like principles are transferable. And if you're willing to learn from anywhere and build, and that's where the creativity in itself, being a creative learner has the ability to look at everything around you and finding the lesson and finding something in a way that you could apply it to. Like I haven't made it yet, but it's going to be made soon. Is like there's 10 lessons I learned from 10 years of rap. Like all those years of rapping taught me a lot of things. It taught me how to be a better public speaker. It taught me how to be a better reader of the room, meaning like you probably had a conversation and you see someone and they're just not connecting. And you're like, great, how do I fix this? Some people wouldn't even notice that because they're so focused on what they had already had planned. That willingness to be flexible. That's another creative trait, I think. But again, I could riff all day on creativity, but I want to make sure we stay on task because I have about 15 minutes left before I have to
Okay.
roll
I'm
out.
gonna
So
wrap it
yeah,
up.
I have. I'm gonna go teach a drum lesson. One of
Okay.
the many things that I do.
So yeah, I want to ask you a small question,
For sure.
and that is, I will put you on the spot. Can you do a rap for us?
Oh, not put me on a spot with a rap. Oh no. Oh, I don't know if I. Man, you're
If
and
not, that's
this is live. I tell you what, if you go to wherever you stream music and type in R3 done, so R3 DONE, you'll see someone that kind of looks like this. And my music's still out there. I haven't made
okay.
anything new since 2018, but if you go check out one of those songs, by all means, go for it because it's still out there.
I will put it in the show notes so
Yeah, yeah, definitely,
they can
definitely
check it out.
put it in the show notes because it's so
Okay.
funny. And people have wondered, like they're like, why did you not just get rid of that stuff after you moved on? Because I feel like there's again, when you create something, it has the ability to be timeless. And that's like when we're creating these podcasts. Yes, it's live. There's people watching right now, and there's going to be people that watch right now months, maybe years down the road, and they'll catch something from it. And that there's a beauty in that. there's a beauty in once you're putting your whole heart, as your show is about, putting your whole heart and yourself into something and putting it into the world, it's going to impact someone, whether that's right now or years down the line. There's a quote in that I always try to hang on to, and it leans more so on my side of faith, but I feel like it's applicable in other areas. And it's this idea of someone's miracle is waiting on the other side of your obedience, meaning someone's breakthrough, someone's future purpose is waiting on the other side of you stepping out and doing the thing that you're too afraid to do. So what are you waiting for? Go do it.
Go do it. So Dustin, I have two more questions. I had something other things that I want to ask, but because of the time, I will have you another time here on the show.
Perfect,
because
yeah.
I really enjoy talking to you.
I'd love to be
But
back on.
yeah, absolutely. But the thing that I want to ask you, the two more things is, what are the top 3 to 5 tips that you can give to men for them to start on the healing journey, and really live there as an authentic man? And like, you see maybe a lot of things in your men's group that you can give, that you start feel like, okay, this is a good way to start.
Good way to start. So first tip would be definitely get into that community or get the coaching or mentor that's going to hold the space for you to process what's going on. And within that, I feel like the first step is recognizing the false labels you're in, recognizing the limiting beliefs and the patterns that you're walking in, because I feel like that's the first step. And a lot of people, or almost, and again, it goes into being willing to share it. Find someone that is comfortable and safe enough for you to share it all, and share it all. And from that, they're going to be able to show you what you can't see. And that's why I think that getting a coach and mentor is so important, because again, I can only see 180. So everything in front of me, I can see. My son, my 4-year-old, might have stuck a kick me sign on my back. And the only time I will know that I have a kick me sign on my back is 2 reasons. I keep getting kicked, or I have someone that says, hey, dude, you got a kick me sign on your back. Or maybe you got some food in your teeth. Put yourself in a circle of people that are going to tell you you have food in your teeth. Or maybe your zipper on your pants is down. Get some people in your life that are going to tell you that's happening, because we have blind spots. And the way to understand your blind spots is to get around people that are caring enough and interested enough in your life to call you higher. And sometimes being called higher doesn't always feel good. But do you want to always feel good and stay the same? Or do you want to deal with the pain of change? And then that would be, I just wanted to, but yeah, and like I've developed like the framework that I talked about, recognizing your blind spots, and then you've got to reorganize. Like, you can't just recognize the negative thought patterns that aren't serving you. You have to reorganize and replace it with something that's going to get you where you want to be. And again, there's a ton more. Definitely connect with Vince. I'm sure Vincent's got some great materials, and just being a friend. And I too, you can find me on my podcast. I'm also working on a community and those things. Not to turn this into a promotion or anything, but definitely I say that not in a sense of, oh, I need more money. I say that in the sense of, when you invest in yourself, the return on that is priceless. Whether it's with Vincent, whether it's with me, whether it's with anyone that's trusted. And I understand. I've been burned before. Vincent's been burned before. It's a gamble we take, but it's something to always remember, is that when you invest in yourself and choose to take the radical step, whether it's the tiniest that it can be, that the next step will come, and the clarity will come when you take the first step.
Perfect. Absolutely perfect. The last question that I want to ask you is, what is the most challenging thing that you had to go through in life? And what is the most thing that you're proud of?
Most challenging. I would say up until this point, it was probably, so after we had our son in 2020, we started raising him. And when we started raising him, I actually quit my stable job to fully focus on raising him for the first year of his life. that was a challenge because, again, it was in that season of no longer being valuable by what I do in the sense of providing for my family. It was more so providing for my family from a way of being present and literally raising a child kind of thing. That was a huge challenge in itself. But then within that, had a ton of mini challenges, like tiny challenge, mini, not mini, but yes, mini. But it had so many challenges within itself. But I'd say equal to that challenge was when we were trying to have our second child. My wife went through a few miscarriages, so she had lost the baby early on into being pregnant and finding that out, and that was just a unique, difficult season that I didn't realize I was prepared for. And even within that, I learned a lot about myself, and I learned a lot about grief and how sometimes you can be connected to something that you don't actually physically get to hold in your hands, but is still alive in itself. And realizing that grief is something that you have to walk through, not something that you can just bottle up. Because again, as men, we bottle things up. But that would be the two challenges. And then what was the second part of that question again?
What are you most grateful of, the most proud of in your life?
Man, again, it would go back to my kids. Like the fact that I'm starting a family and I'm building a legacy, and I like to believe that I am a catalyst of change for my entire lineage, meaning that growing up I didn't have the best of situation. Granted, my parents are great, my sister's great, and I'm grateful for them. But also there was things that could have been a lot of things that could have been done differently. And it's just beautiful that I'm getting that opportunity now to kind of draw the line in the sand and say this, as for me and my house, we're going to do this and we're going to go that way. And just already seeing the fruit. Like my kids are 4 and 2, and like just faith in God being a huge thing and a thing that I want to pass down to my generations, and already seeing that in them. Like seeing it every night, we say affirmations over our kids, and they're already ready to say them and they're tiny and they can barely talk. And I'm just like, we're doing it. We're making those decisions, or the way that they just, the things that they've caught just from being around us, like, oh, we're going to go do this, or like, oh, we care about that person. And again, I'm very trying to condense stories for the sake of time, but that's just been, yeah, so grateful for this opportunity.
Beautiful. Yeah, I have nothing to add. Thank you much. Thank you so much for sharing. Thank you so much for being here, Dustin, to take your time, to precious time being here on the
Definitely.
show. Like I said, I always enjoyed talking with you. It's been really good
Likewise.
talking for you after such a long time.
Likewise.
And
We could go for another 2 hours
yeah, I
if
know.
time permitted.
I know.
And I'm
Yeah.
just like, dang,
Yeah, I know.
it's all right.
Well,
You'll have me
it's
back
good for
for
next
sure.
time. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll have
So
you back on
Dustin,
mine as well.
yeah, awesome. I really appreciate that. So Dustin, how can they listeners follow you?
Perfect. Easiest way is if you go to YouTube, Red Wallace, Better Than Best Academy. I'll send you the link so they can have
Yeah,
a
I'll put
straight
everything in
link.
the show notes.
But that's the main place. I'm everywhere else you listen to podcasts. So if you're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all of those, I stream to that. But the hub for mine is really the video aspect that comes from the YouTube, because you get to visually show things. And I feel like that's really the best place to find me from content. And then if you want to literally just connect with me, I put my handle at coach.redwallace on Instagram. I would say that I'm the most active on there. If you DM me and say, hey, I found you from the How to Heart podcast and I want to connect, want to be your friend, whatever that may be, send me a DM that way. That's going to be the best way to get a direct connection. And then as far as kind of a free practical next step for your guest is I have a quick little assessment that I created, and I'll send that to you.
Cool.
So you have it in the show notes as well.
Yeah, awesome. Perfect. Like again, Dustin, I really enjoyed talking with you. I've learned a lot from you also for my own life. And I
Awesome. I love it.
know for sure that a lot of people will have a lot of benefits from our conversation and the next one that will come. So Again, Dustin, thank you so much for your time, for being here. I really enjoyed it. You're a really amazing person, amazing guest. I can see how you talk, your personality. So don't lose that. And yeah, good luck with your drumming session. And yeah, I wish you all the best, and we will talk soon.
I appreciate it, Vincent. Thanks again for having me on. And likewise,
Absolutely.
I admire what you're doing here. So don't let the discouragement stop you, because you are making a
No,
difference. You're making a difference.
absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you so much for the kind words. I really appreciate it. So guys, thank you so much for watching. It's been an awesome show. Too bad the time is short, but next time
Yeah.
we'll make it
Next time.
better. But I really enjoyed it. He gave so much value and clarity and how you can start change your life. So thank you so much, Dustin. And guys, if you really like this show, like and subscribe to the How to Heart Show on YouTube. You can also follow me on my social media. I will also share and post my own journey, so you can also learn from that. So, guys, thank you so much. Dustin, thank you. And I wish you all the best. Take care. Bye.
Mhm. Peace.
Hey Lions, thank you for listening. Glad to have you on our journey to the authentic self. Want to learn more to embrace your potential? I invite you to keep listening. Do me a favor and smash the like and subscribe buttons, as this helps the show reach more listeners who need to hear these messages. See you next time. Well, Dustin,